was 12 and a half years old, my mama put $10 in my hand and told me to look after myself. I did as I was told.
Yeah, I really loved seeing you in this type of role because you're very well known for like your action roles and you're a real action hero in movies. I mean, what intrigued you about this role in particular and, how it differs from all the past roles you've done?
Well, I mean that sort of that was a lot to do with it. It did differ a lot in to a lot of the work I'd done previously. I think the potential to explore the details of this character was something that I hadn't really been given the chance to many times over, and so I leapt at it. There's a very damaged man in Clyde, but someone who is kind of playing different versions of himself throughout the film, and I just saw an opportunity there to really sink my teeth into something that could push me and also explore the ideas around kind of depression, alcoholism, domestic violence, intimacy. There's just like a lot of territory to cover with him, and we don't get a lot of information as the audience. A lot of the film we're sort of asking questions, which is an interesting state for people to be in, and I think being inside the mind of someone who knows a deeper truth but isn't necessarily able to show it was interesting to me. So that had a lot to do with it. Stuart and I had been talking for some years, actually. By the time we got into production, I'd been attached for some time, and the film had kind of had different degrees of acceleration in its ability to get up and running. And then, of course, COVID and all the things that kind of happened around that period. But by the time we were there, there'd been enough kind of loose prep between he and I that I was just chomping at the bit to get Clyde up and running and get on its feet. And yeah, I mean, he set the table, and just kind of let his wonderful cast do what they do best. And it was just such a privilege to be able to work with that material and to be able to portray someone who had so much complexity.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, his complexity, and he's a pretty awful and abusive guy, but you also do bring this sort of humanity to him. I mean, how do you approach portraying a guy that you can both hate and sort of understand?
Well, it's a tricky one. I think the sort of the abrasive nature of Clyde is all a protective kind of skin that he puts up. He's not someone who's necessarily that comfortable with his vulnerability, but we do get shades of it. And as the film progresses and sort of the heat really kind of comes in, you do start to understand a little more about him. I think what's at the center of it is a fear of going back to a time in their lives when he was someone else and someone he became who he wasn't proud of. But that isn't like the root of who he is as a man. And I think that's what's interesting. We don't really know why he wants to keep her out there. It's understood that there's some kind of imminent threat to their existence. But without giving anything away, if you sit through to the end, we come to learn that that's not quite the truth either. And really, what it centers around is, his fear that if they're back in the city, he'll sink back into the lifestyle and the person that he was that kind of pulled him away from being something much more honorable. So their love is really what's holding him there, and his hope that it's strong enough to do that. It's just a shame that it's so misguided because it sort of forces him to shut down her dreams in protection of it, which is, I think it's actually kind of a common thing and probably something that a lot of people identify with. Communication is key. If he was able to tap into, what was really going on and they had some good couples therapy, then I'm sure he wouldn't be in this predicament. But that's not the time and place where this film resides. And so, yeah, there's a lot of damage that we have to kind of bear the brunt of.
Yeah, I mean, it's really funny because, Geena and Clyde are out there. They definitely need couples therapy. And it's like, that's all you can really do out there when you're isolated. It's like, just talk to each other, but they're so separated. But there are a lot of scenes where he really just goes off the rails and he's so aggressive and violent about it. And it's absolutely terrifying. I mean, what's the mood on set when, you have to perform these types of scenes, especially with Erin?
Trust, really, I think is where things have to be sort of seated in order to create a safe space where that happens. It does get a little physical at times. It's also very intimate. There's a lot of like stretching yourself and if the environment's not right, you can have a really tough day exploring that sort of material. But we were in like a love bubble on that film, all four of us. Because it's a highly emotional movie. And so, you have to create a space where you're supporting each other, and that might mean giving each other just room. And then, other than that, you have to create a space where you have absolute trust, and that like, even when we're going to push it to this level, they call cut, or we wrap the day or whatever, and we're all back at the hotel having a beer together, laughing and talking about bullshit. So I think there's a certain alchemy that comes with that you can't necessarily plan for or predict. And casting is such a delicate thing with respect to that, because there's no way you can plan for people to get along as well as we did, or feel as secure with each other as we did, and support each other as well as we did. That just happens, or it doesn't. But we were fortunate on this film to be in an environment where it was key, and we were all searching for the best version of the film, able to kind of push each other and also hold each other when we needed it.
Yeah, I mean, working with only three other actors, or mainly three other actors, it kind of feels like a team building exercise in some ways.
It certainly was. I mean, we pushed the limits on team building. Everything kind of got. It was hard to decompress. We were so kind of involved by the end of that thing that it was one of those. Sometimes you get to the end of the show and you're just like, cannot wait to get home and whatever, get back to your family or your dog, or break that kind of wall down. And despite how intense the material was, we really had a tough time letting this one go.
Yeah, and you're also in the middle of nowhere in this movie, and it was so beautiful, but it also looks so dry and so hot, and you're wearing this heavy clothing. I mean, what was it like to film in this location and still do all these cool scenery shots?
It was amazing. I mean, it was like Martian almost. It's set in Big Bend, Texas, but we shot the film in the Canary Islands in Spain, which might sound like a wildly absurd idea, but it actually was the perfect place. It would have been so hard to find we're in like this almost like a gravel pit, and there's areas of Texas that look exactly like that, but logistically, we wouldn't have had the infrastructure to shoot the film the way we did. But we were blessed with this incredible location. It's all shot in one spot. Basically, they built the two trailers in reality. So we had these kind of working sets in the middle of absolutely nowhere, which I mean, it was incredible. It really like put you in a space that creates sort of a lot less make believe, and you just get to kind of buy into it. I loved that so much about it. It was so arid and windy. We're on an island called Fuerteventura, which literally means strong wind. And it blew a gale all day, every day, which I thought would be a complete nightmare for sound. But bizarrely enough, we did barely any, post recording in audio. But so we got away with it. But yeah, it wasn't necessarily comfortable at times, but that's half the beauty of that stuff. It's really good. I love kind of getting dirty and getting as close to reality on screen as you can in your production. So we're very fortunate to have that.